We're talking about multitasking, specifically as a skill that you can learn. Because some people say it's something you're born with, and others say that you can't do it simply because you're a man. This is something that neuroscientists, psychologists, and productivity experts have been debating about for years, and they finally come to an answer. I always thought that I was quite good at it, that it's a skill that I've developed over years, but what they've just revealed is that I've been learning something completely different, yet very useful this entire time, because multitasking isn't physically possible for anyone. And that is surprisingly a good thing, because it's something you can use to your advantage, but also it's super interesting and insightful about what makes our brains tick. So I'm about to prove to you exactly what that is, as well as the actual skill I've been learning all these years in this 3-step process I've laid out in front of you. I'm Lewis, I learn things for a living, and every study that I've used will be in the description. First of all, what multitasking actually is, by definition, because people tend to get a little bit confused. Multitasking is the ability to focus on 2 or more complex and attention-demanding tasks at once. A great example of that I would use is reading a book whilst also writing an email to your boss. An example of something that isn't multitasking is washing the dishes while having a conversation with your parents. Those 2 situations are very, very distinctly different for one reason. Washing the dishes is not a conscious task. You don't need to dedicate a lot of attention in order to get it done. That's why your brain can delegate it in order to spend its attention on the task you're doing that actually requires attention, like holding a dynamic conversation with another human being. Reading a book and writing an email to your boss are both very attention-demanding tasks. And in practice, this is where the conventional definition of multitasking breaks down. Because if you were to do both of those tasks at the same time, you wouldn't actually be doing them both at the same time. What you're actually doing in this situation is called task switching. And this is what people mistake for multitasking. Your brain has the ability to rapidly switch between whatever task it's focusing on. And it does it so fast that you trick yourself into thinking you're actually doing 2 things at once, when in reality, you're not. Now, it is great that the brain can do this, and we'll get onto why fundamentally we can do it later. However, it comes with a cost. And it's something that everyone who says they're good at multitasking suffers with, without them even knowing it. Every time you switch tasks, your brain has to reorient itself. Think of it like you're going to a destination in your car and you're using maps on your phone. About halfway into the journey, you decide we need to switch destinations. So you pull into a service station, you pull out your phone, you put in the new address and you wait for it to load, and then, okay, right, we need to go back the other way, put that back in and set off. This is what's called a switching cost. And in terms of your brain, it just means it runs slower, it makes more mistakes, and in general, there's just more mental fatigue, or your brain is under more stress and strain. And this is something that you experience every single day. If you ever check your notifications on your phone while you're working, or you text while you're driving, which by the way, I hope you're not, it strips away your focus and it makes you make more mistakes on whatever you're doing. Also, what you're doing takes exponentially longer to do because you're splitting your attention. Psychologists have proven, in fact, that it takes up to 20 minutes to fully regain your focus after you switch between tasks. Now, if you're switching tasks multiple times a day, you'll quickly find that it adds up and you lose hours of your day that a lot of people put down as procrastination, but it's not. It's just a mismanagement of time. Now, I said at the start of the video that this was going to be helpful, and I wasn't lying. So how can we use this information to our advantage in our day-to-day lives? And why does it align very, very well with the actual skill that I was learning through years and years of what I thought was multitasking? What I was actually learning is something called context management. And it's a skill that has benefited me massively in terms of productivity in my life, but I think more interestingly, it's just a cool workaround to how our bodies evolved from our ancestors. You see, this rapid switching that we do in our brains used to be extremely helpful in terms of our survival. Imagine foraging for berries in a bush, but then you've also got to keep an eye out for predators at the same time. I guess that's the same as today, really, isn't it? But then you've also got to keep an ear out for your mate in the cave who's watching the fire in case you need to bring back more wood, as well as the berries and also the meat that you've got from the predator. It's a lot. This ability to juggle attention between tasks was the earliest form of productivity that we can probably date back to. But the thing that's different from back then is that the tasks we had to do back then weren't exactly hard, were they? If you managed to show a caveman a ballpoint pen, I'm pretty sure he'd have an aneurysm. Genetic evolution takes a lot of time to make any sort of noticeable change. Whereas modern civilization, I mean, if you look back just 100 years ago, how much has changed? So our biological clock just hasn't had time to catch up to the busy, frantic life that is modern day. Maybe generations and generations in the future, the brain will come up with a way to juggle these complex tasks the same way it does the boring, menial ones. However, we are not that generation, so we need the skill of context management. And here you go. When you have a list of tasks to do that's quite long, it's very easy for a multitasker to just throw themselves in head first and try and do as much as they can at the same time, and then, they end up getting tired. So they'll have some lunch while doing another task, and then they'll get back to it and try to do it all, and inevitably not get it all done because they're going about it the wrong way. Context management is about going about it the smart way. And this isn't just by pairing up as many tasks as possible, it's by pairing up the tasks that make sense to go together. If there's a subconscious task to do, like washing the dishes, for example, something that doesn't require attention, try and pair that up with a task that does require complex thinking and action, like ringing up the doctor's office to make an appointment, for example. Instead of trying to read a book while also lifting weights, how about you listen to the audio of that book while lifting the weights, or read the book whilst doing like a slow incline walk on a treadmill? The truth is, your brain can only process so much. There is a hard limit to how much attention you have during the day. And if you push it too far, you're probably not going to get everything done. And if you do get everything done, it's not all going to get done very well. If you found this interesting, you should watch this video on why it's hard to punch in your dreams, because it's the only video that I've done that's done well recently. So you should probably watch that one. All right. Thank you. Bye.